Hey there, and welcome to the Gentle Beginnings podcast. I am Toby Deitch, childbirth educator, founder of Gentle Beginnings, and creator of the Brain Body Birth course. If you're pregnant, preparing for birth, navigating postpartum, or just figuring out life with a newborn, you're in the right place. There is so much information out there, and it can feel like a lot. My goal with this podcast is to make things feel a little simpler, to help you feel less overwhelmed, less stressed, and more confident in yourself and your choices. Think of this as a place where you can take a deep breath, learn something new, and walk away feeling a little more calm, prepared, and excited for what's ahead. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Hi, and welcome back to the Gentle Beginnings podcast. My name is Toby Deitch, and before we begin today's episode, I just want to give a little trigger warning that this conversation includes a traumatic birth experience, including discussions of an emergency C-section, fear, feelings of abandonment, and lack of support during labor. So please take care of yourself as you listen. And if this feels too heavy right now, it's okay to pause and come back another time. I also want to say that the reason I chose to share this story is not to create fear, but because there is so much to learn from it. One of the things that stood out to me most while speaking to Chaya Sury was her strength. Listening to her story, I kept thinking about how vulnerable birth truly is. When a woman is in labor, she's relying on the people around her to help her feel safe, protected, supported, and heard. We trust our providers. We trust the people we hire to guide us through one of the most important moments of our lives. And it's heartbreaking that birth culture has gotten to a place where mothers sometimes feel like they need to fight for their rights in the birth room while they're actively giving birth. One thing I talk about extensively inside the Brain Body Birth course is advocacy. There's a full module just devoted for advocacy and understanding your options, understanding the research and knowing the pros and cons of interventions and learning how to ask questions and how to slow things down, how to say yes when something feels aligned and how to say no when it doesn't. And it's important to say that advocacy is not always about refusing everything or fighting with your providers, but it's about informed decision-making and making sure that a mother's voice remains part of the conversation. But I think stories like this remind us that advocacy is not always simple in real time. It's one thing to learn information in a class when you feel calm and clear-headed. And it's another thing entirely to be in the intensity and vulnerability of labor, exhausted, emotional, overwhelmed, and trying to process everything happening around you. I can teach these concepts all day long, and sometimes people hear them and think, that would never happen, or maybe that's exaggerated. But hearing a real story from a real mother brings it home in a completely different way. These situations do happen, and that's exactly why these conversations matter. Chaya Sury prepared. She hired one of the top providers that people recommended. She did what so many women are told to do. She listened, she followed. And yet there were moments where she still felt dismissed and unsupported. But what moved me most was her courage in sharing her story honestly and vulnerably, so that other women can learn from it too. Not every birth goes the way we hope, and sometimes birth does include fear, grief, disappointment, or trauma. But even in those moments, there can still be tremendous strength and resilience. And there's something deeply powerful about a mother reclaiming her experience and telling her story in her own voice. I am incredibly grateful to Chaya Sury for being here today and for trusting us with something so personal. So, Chaya Sury, thank you so much for being here and for agreeing to come on and share your story.
Pleasure. I'm excited to talk about it.
Amazing. So, let's go back to early pregnancy. How were you feeling? What were your thoughts around pregnancy and birth in general? What were you hoping for?
My pregnancy in the beginning was the first 6 weeks. I would say I would barely realize that I was pregnant. I was excited. I knew that I was pregnant, but I felt nothing. Everything felt so easy, no nausea, nothing. I was just expecting the whole thing to be a breeze. It got a little harder. The nausea kicked in. I lost a ton of weight in months 2 and 3. I could not keep food down, but it got better, as it always does. Um, Life just moves on. You get a little better. I wasn't as nauseous anymore. I was able to keep food down, started finally gaining some weight, which gaining weight in pregnancy is a really good thing. Um, my pregnancy was pretty smooth. I was using a high-risk doctor just because I had heard that they're great and I wanted the best. But we didn't see any complications or anything like that. Everything looked great.
Amazing. So it sounds like you had a really typical smooth sailing, semi-smooth sailing first trimester. Despite of the nausea. Nausea is never fun. And then what happened? You're past the first trimester. Now you're deep into your pregnancy and we now have to prepare for birth. What did that preparation look like for you?
I am super type A. I am so on top of things. If I can create lists for every single thing and follow through, I 100% will. I was probably in the beginning of my second trimester when I started ordering things from my hospital bag and preparing what I needed. I knew which doula I wanted to use based on recommendations from family members. And I was confident that she was the right fit, which I later figured out wasn't the right fit. And I'll go into that a little more. I had tried meeting up with her and having conversations. I didn't understand how important those conversations were. I knew that they should happen, but she kept on sort of dodging them and being like, oh, you're so early in your pregnancy. We don't have to talk until later on. You're only 20 weeks. It's okay. We have time. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm just so on top of things and so ahead of it that it's okay. I kept asking her specifically that I wanted recommendations for a birthing class because I knew, as on top of things as I am, I want to be as educated as possible. She was also not able to help me out with that. So I then started asking family and friends, and they all told me to go to Gentle Beginnings. They're like,
No.
you have to take this class. It is so helpful. It is going to change everything for you. And I was like, okay, I guess we got to book that. So I did. Throughout my pregnancy, the one thing that did come up was I have something called factor 11 deficiency. It's super common in the Ashkenazi population. It just means that your blood is a little slower in clotting. So when you bleed, it can take a little longer. But factor 11 deficiency doesn't mean that it always is slow in clotting. It means that it's sometimes slow in clotting. And the only way they'll know if it's going to be slow in the moment is to take a blood test in the moment. I had originally decided that I'm strong, I'm capable. I want to not get an epidural as long as possible. And that's part of why I wanted to be as educated as possible, because I think saying no to epidural, you have to say yes to something else, which means you have to say yes to educating yourself on how you're going to go about making birth work for you. So I had looked into that. My doctors had recommended that just in case of emergency C-section, they did think I should have an epidural on my back, just the needle, not the medication, because that would help with, in case of emergency C-section, they couldn't place the needle in my back without doing a bunch of blood tests and making sure I wasn't going to bleed too much. So they said, all you got to do is put the needle in your back. You don't need medication. I confirmed that with them like 3 times. You don't need you don't need the medication, just the needle. We'll put it in your back. And then just in case of emergency, I called it my plan Y because plan Z was being put under general anesthesia for emergency C-section. So plan Y was that we would need to use the epidural in the event of a C-section. So in my pregnancy, we had so many plans. Like if we literally got the plan Y and Z, I was so prepared. I went ahead and took this amazing birthing class, and my husband and I both educated ourselves, which was life-changing for him as well. Because in the entire pregnancy, he was like, why do I need to be in the room? How am I helping if you're in so much pain and I can't do anything about it? And this class honestly changed his opinion on that. He started understanding what I need and how he could help. Um, and then we felt prepared. We were calm going into this birth that was going to be so easy and uneventful.
Wow, I love to hear it. So it seems like your intuition was definitely coming through with your doula. Like you felt like something's not right, but still you heard from other people, like, she's good. And you just decided, maybe I'm the problem. But really, it was your intuition saying something's not right here. And I guess we're going to get to the end of that story soon. And it was such an honor to get to work with you and with your husband and be a part of your journey. And then you had all your plan A through plan Z schedule, planned out. And really, I love that. Because it's important to keep an open and flexible mindset. And sometimes when we get stuck on only one way, then if birth takes a different path, then we are left so lost. We don't have any tools to handle that journey because we weren't prepared for it. So having an open and flexible mindset really is so important. And you got the epidural without the medication in, that was also on your plan. It sounded like you were really well prepared. And then what happened? Talk to me. How did the birthday start for you?
So my doctor is very big on inductions. He believes that at 38 weeks of pregnancy, your baby is fully developed and there's no need to keep them inside anymore. He also believes that the longer they're inside, the bigger they get, which means they're harder to push out. I know this is controversial, and I know that not everyone believes that. My doctor does believe that. The reason my doctor wanted me to get induced is not because my baby's size, because he was measuring perfectly. He was 50th percentile at every single visit. So he was not going to be too big for anyone's body to push out. The reason my doctor believed I needed an induction was because my factor 11 numbers kept coming back as really low, as in dangerously low. And they were afraid I was going to hemorrhage if I go into natural labor and my water breaks, I come into the hospital. If the baby comes out right away, I can hemorrhage because my blood wouldn't clot fast enough. So what they had decided was exactly 38 weeks. I was 38 weeks on a Sunday. So they said Sunday night at 11 p.m., come into the hospital, say that you're having contractions, and we are going to go ahead and induce you. We are first going to give you blood. And the plan was to give me 4 bags of fresh frozen plasma, it's called. It's the agent that helps you clot. You'll come in at night, we'll give it to you in the morning, we'll break your water, and you'll be all good. I was actually 3 centimeters dilated already at 38 weeks. So we believe that I come in, it's going to take so fast. This baby's just going to slide right out. So day of the Sunday, the day I'm supposed to go in, I actually work on Sundays. I went to work, came home, ate some food, showered, put our bags in the car, and went to the hospital. From when I got to the hospital, that's when a lot of the stress and confusion started coming up for me. First, my doctors did not prepare me that when you come in, you're going to be in triage for an hour and none of our staff is going to meet you. They had never told me that, and I was so confused and a little lost about it. I also knew that a lot of times doctors, floor doctors in hospitals, they will check you and they will not necessarily get the right measurement of how dilated you are. So when I came in, I told them, I don't want to be checked unless it's from my medical team because I know my doctors one is always on call. I want that doctor to stop by and check me. And they said, you don't have that choice. So I had a floor doctor check me. They told me I'm 4 centimeters already. The next day, my doctors actually checked me and they're like, you're only 3. Who told you that? You're 4. And they all started laughing about how that doctor got it wrong. That made me feel so violated. Like I said, I don't want to be checked because I knew this could happen. It's not funny that it happened and you got it wrong. That's not okay.
No.
After being in triage for 1 hour, they moved me into a room and they started the process of ordering the blood. I was supposed to get 4 bags of blood. It's frozen. So they literally have to defrost it and bring it to the room, start administering it. So that was the plan overnight. Once they finished giving me the bags, it was probably around 3, 4 a.m. At that point, they did another blood test to make sure that I'm good, but my labs came back still abnormal. So they ordered 2 more bags of blood. And that, again, has to be defrosted. It takes an hour a bag. So at that point, we're in the early mornings already. They do my test again after 6 bags, and it still wasn't good. So they ordered 2 more bags of blood. After 8 bags of blood, we are now, I would say, at like 2 to 4 p.m. because into Monday. It took a long, long time. So they then went ahead. They said, okay, now we can give you the epidural, and then we're going to break your water. So when they were giving me the epidural, I confirmed with my doula, I confirmed with the doctors around me. I said, I'm just getting the needle. I'm not getting the medication, right? Because I really want to be able to move through my labor. And they said, yeah, you're going to be able to move through. The only thing is we need a test that it's in the right location. So we're going to give you a small testing dose. I didn't really understand what that meant, but I was sure my doula understood because I had said so many times that I need to be able to move through my labor. So they put the epidural into my back. I lay down, they break my water. And then my doula says, okay, we're going to put a monitor on you. I am going to leave the room. I'll come back soon. And I was a little confused about that. She later on told me that she was trying to monitor from a different room, like just see my monitor from a different room to see when my contractions started so she could give me some privacy. The only issue is, they did not place the monitor right, and my contractions started really fast, got really bad because they break your water, put you on Pitocin, and she was nowhere to be found. I remember turning to my husband and saying, I thought this is what the doula's for. When I have my contractions, when I feel all of it, she helps me through it. And she was just nowhere to be found. They also told me you have to stay in bed for a little longer just because of the tester dose that we gave you with epidural. I said, okay, but I really want to use the bathroom. So, let me know as soon as I can go. About an hour in, they up my Pitocin every 20 minutes. So it's been up 3 times already. It's pretty painful. I tell them, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom now. Said, can you wiggle your toes? And I was like, yeah, I can feel them a little bit. They're like, okay, we're going to wait a little longer. We wait another hour. And I'm like, okay, now I can totally feel it. Let me go. They're like, you're sure we could give you a bedpan? I'm like, this is why I said I don't want the medication. I want to be able to get out and move. It's been pretty painful just staying in bed with the Pitocin so far. So they said, okay, we'll help you up. And I start standing up and one of my feet gave out and I started falling. And they're like, nope, you got to go back in bed. You're not ready to get out yet. This was really frustrating at this point. It's been 2 hours. So they have upped my Pitocin 6 times and my epidural isn't working. Like it's been weaning. They gave me the tester dose and I've not been using it because I've been adamant that I am going to do this naturally. But naturally without any movement and just laying in a bed is the most painful way to go about it. And again, my doula only came in at the end of these 2 hours. They called her in because I kept protesting that I want to go to the bathroom. Okay, wait a little longer. We can give you a bedpan. I'm like, I'm not using the bedpan. It makes me so uncomfortable. So I waited a little longer. It's been getting so painful, about 3 hours in. And I tell them, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom now. And they're like, no, we're not letting you out of bed anymore because of what happened before. It's like, are you serious? You made me stay another hour without me getting any epidural, laying in bed, needing to use the bathroom, and only now you're telling me that I can't get out of bed? They're like, it's not safe. You can't get out of bed. And my doula was backing what the nurses were telling me. She was not on my side being like, it's okay. We're going to push through this. You're going to be able to get out or anything. I had clarified that this is not what I wanted. At this point, I was pretty far along. I think I was around 8 centimeters. I dilated very quickly.
Wow.
It was very quick and very painful because this entire time I'm literally just laying in a bed. At this point, I decided, okay, I'm going to use the epidural because it is one or the other. You're either going to move through the contractions and breathe through them properly, or you're going to lay on your back and also breathe through them. You don't have, with an epidural, it's not all or nothing. You don't all of a sudden feel absolutely zero. Some people do, but not everybody. For me, my epidural did not at all work on my right hip. And I just felt every single contraction as intense pain just on my right hip. So we're a couple of hours in now. About 4 or 5 hours after they broke my water, they're like, okay, we could start pushing. So I started pushing. They start, no more epidural anymore. You have to be able to feel the contractions. Not that I'd been using the epidural for that long because, the first 3 hours I didn't want it. I thought I would be able to get out of bed for it. I'm pushing. They said I was doing good. They said I got the hang of pushing right away. And I was sure everything was going well. My doctor worked with a midwife from his practice the same day. The midwife stayed in my room the entire time. So did my doula and a nurse from the hospital. My doctor kept walking in and out with a really disturbed attitude, like he was really upset about something, really bothered. And that was so distracting for me while I was pushing and so discouraging and so upsetting. I really didn't know what to do with it. I was like, I don't understand why his attitude is almost like he doesn't want to be there. Like, I didn't force you to be at my birth. This is sort of what you signed up for. I was just confused about that. After about 2 hours of pushing, they say that the baby isn't in the right position and it's not coming down enough. Every time I push, it went down. And then the second I stopped pushing, he would go back up. So first the doula said I should, go into a certain position. And then they said, oh, his heart isn't tracking properly on the monitor. They're concerned about that. And the doula was like, that's okay. It's probably just not reading, but it's totally fine. But the doctor didn't seem to think it was totally fine. After repositioning me, they decided that it's okay. I can try pushing again. And after pushing a little bit, the doctor was like, nope, it's not working. We're going to use a vacuum. I knew what a vacuum was. I mentally prepared myself again. I knew plans A through Z. I'm ready for this. They bring in the equipment for it. And my doctor starts pacing back and forth right in front of me. And then he's like, nope, I feel like because of the factor 11 deficiency, there will be bleeding on top of the baby's head. And vacuums always cause a certain amount of bleeding, but he was convinced that my baby might have factor 11 deficiency, which will cause a lot of bleeding, which can cause a huge issue. So he said, we're going to go ahead and use forceps. So forceps is a way bigger deal than vacuum, apparently. They start readjusting the bed. They take off parts. I don't really know. They bring in whole different equipment. There is giant spotlights on top of the bed right at my face, and they turn those on. And I was like, no, it's too bright. And the doula's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. And the doctor told her to go get something. So she completely left the room in that moment while I just felt so lost and confused because I thought we're using the vacuum. Prepared myself, we're using the vacuum. And then we're right away changing to forceps. The doctor still seemed so anxious. I apparently missed this part, but my husband then filled me in that they brought in an ultrasound machine to see how to use the forceps properly. And they saw that the baby's position wasn't even ideal for forceps. So they then went ahead and said, nope, we're going in for emergency C-section. Emergency C-section was beyond confusing for us. They put back together the bed because they took it apart for C-section. They told my husband, pack up everything in the room. You're not coming back to this room, which I think was such a weird thing to do in the moment. Maybe his job should have been to stay with me, not pack up our stuff. That's what I felt like. Yes. But they told him, pack up everything. We'll show you. You'll go to a different section while we'll prepare her. They had him pack up, take the stuff, and they had him waiting about 15 minutes after he put down stuff. He was just pacing back and forth, beyond confused at where I was or if I was even okay. They wheeled me into the operating room. They put up the drape. Everyone comes in. I just know there's a lot of people. My anxiety hit so hard at this point because at this point, we're Tuesday morning. I had come into the hospital Sunday night. I had started pushing late Monday night and I had pushed for 2 hours. Then they had said they're using a vacuum. Then they said forceps. Then they went for emergency C-section. I was terrified and confused, a little relieved that they didn't have to put me under because, plan Y actually happened. Um, they started the C-section. My doula was like, hey, they already started and you're doing okay. Look at that. And I was confused because they still hadn't let my husband back into the room. So I was confused about how that's a relief that they started and I'm okay when I'm still alone. They then brought in my husband. I couldn't really see anything. Your hands are straight out. You can just turn your head from left to right and stare straight up at the lights that are like glaring in your eyes. They did the C-section. They took my baby out. And my doctor's like, it's a boy. At that point, I was beyond exhausted. I honestly didn't even care. I was like, just get me out of here. This is just so exhausting. They took the baby to the other side of the room while they, wiped him off and everything. My husband went to that side, so he got to see the baby. But then they said, oh, the baby seemed to have swallowed some meconium. So we're going to take him to the NICU. And my husband and I, again, we prepared for everything. So he knew his job was to go with a baby to the NICU, and my doula's job was to stay with me. So my husband left. The one thing I did not prepare myself for, it takes a long time to sew all the layers back together. That's not something I was aware of. So if you're there in the room, your husband left with your baby, you're now laying on a table for an hour while they sew you back together. About 20 minutes in, they actually put me to sleep. I don't remember them asking if it's okay or anything. They just did. I remember my doula saying something like, they're going to give you something to help with the shaking, because I was shaking a lot from the anxiety and just being overwhelmed. And then the next thing I remember was the midwife from my practice. She woke me up. She said, hey, we're done. And I could see the room was pretty empty. There were a few nurses or doctors, whoever it was, still cleaning up. And my doula wasn't there. My husband wasn't there. They wheeled me out to a different room. They said, you're going to be here for a few hours while we make sure you're okay. Then we'll be able to wheel you past your baby in the NICU and then take you up to your room. The one thing, again, I don't recommend my doula. I'm obviously not going to say her name, but she left before my C-section was over. I woke up and she wasn't there. The reason my husband and I agreed that, one person goes with a baby, one person stays with me, because I had a doula. I was going to have someone with me. And then she just wasn't there. The next time I heard from her was her checking in and asking for payment. That was pretty confusing to me. So when people do their research on doulas, I would suggest if you see red flags, move on. This is a huge moment, and doulas are not cheap. I'm not saying they should be cheaper. I'm just saying that they should do their job well and be worth what you are going to invest in.
Wow.
I was in that room. My husband ended up hearing that I'm out of surgery, so he came to see me. Then he went back to the baby. The baby was doing great. I remember there were so many moments that I had prepared for, like right after birth, holding my baby and nursing my baby and all of that. I remember my husband showed me a picture of how cute my baby was, that he was taking a bottle. And I just was so sad that he was getting a bottle.
I'm so
Still
sorry.
makes me tear up about how upset I was about that moment. After a little while, I kept drifting off because of the medications. They wheeled me past my baby's bed in the NICU. The only thing I was able to do was touch his toes. And then they wheeled me to my room and said, go to sleep and you'll see him later. The next day was not any better. The next day, doctor came in to check on me, said, all is good. C-section went well. You're great. I wanted to go see my baby, but they said I needed more blood in order to take the epidural out of my back. So they were going to start by giving me blood. Before I had my baby, they gave me 1 bag of blood in 1 hour. And some of the bags they were able to give in 30 minutes. This was a different anesthesiologist, whoever it was, decided that each bag, I should get 2 bags and each one should take 2.5 hours. And I can't get out of bed while they are put into my arm. So they didn't let me see my baby that entire time. I had touched his toes once, and then by 7 p.m., I still hadn't seen him. My husband threatened them. He's like, there's no way you're going to give her more blood, lock her into bed, and not let her see her baby. And they said, we don't have enough staff. Someone has to go with her. What if she collapses? He's like, a wheeler in a wheelchair. Send along a nurse. Figure it out. And he was a huge advocate for me to be able to go see my baby. which I did. I went to see my baby for the first time at 7 p.m., about 15 hours after I had him. I was able to hold him. Then came all the scary medical parts. My baby started having seizures, and they brought in neuro, which learned that my baby had a stroke, which caused the seizures. It was a long NICU journey from there, and not enough help from the doctors that I thought were my team. I thought that if you go to a practice, it automatically means that they are there for you on your side and will make sure that everything you deserve, you get. I think it's really important that people understand that that's not always the case. I actually did confront my doctor, and we brought up so many points of ways that they should have handled everything better. And two things that I know a lot of women's jaw is going to drop to the floor right now. One, he said you should have complained more, which, how is that a normal response? I have to complain in order to get the basic treatment that I deserve? That's not how it works. And two, he said, come back for your next baby. Let us do better. And if you're paying privately, I'll give you 50% off next time.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think the money is going to solve the issue.
But I just want to reflect back, and I was this one question. Do you know what this tells you? When a doctor says we'll give you 50% off, that reflects on the level of maltreatment. You should never have been treated the way that you were. There are so many points in your story that stand out to me, and just my heart just breaks for you, for your husband, for your baby, that you had to go through that. Even though sometimes C-sections, interventions are sometimes important and necessary, there's a way to go about it. And you're a mother giving birth to a baby. It's not only about the end result of getting baby out and healthy mom, healthy baby. It's the emotional journey. And the fact that he says that just says that he is very much aware that there was a lot of wrong that happened. And
yeah, and I agree. In addition, my doctor who did the C-section, he came into my room the next morning after we had notified my baby had a stroke. And he started talking about how many kids I want and that I should be doing C-sections for the next, for the future, and not try me back again or anything like that. Vaginal isn't going to be my way of giving birth anymore. I just have to go for C-sections. And I had mentioned to him, I was like, my baby's in the NICU now. He's like, oh, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. Because that was just the real wrong conversation to be having with a mother who hadn't even seen her baby yet.
That's horrible. Wow. Oh my gosh. I have a lot to say. And the first thing I want to say is that I want you to give yourself so much kindness and compassion for what you went through. You not only had a baby, but you sacrificed so much to bring this baby earthside. And that's the ultimate, definition of being a mother is just going through that fire and finding yourself as a mother. And sometimes that means abandoning plan A through Z and going to plan, X, Y, whatever it's called. Because that's what motherhood is all about. But from the moment you walked into your hospital, you were already violated. You said no to a vaginal check, and they made it seem like you don't have a choice and you cannot say no. That, for some people listening, they might think, okay, it's not such a big deal. You just go with the flow. But no means no. Consent is not something that you negotiate. When someone says no, it's no. And the fact that they were laughing about it after that, oh, the doc, they got it wrong, when you didn't want that to begin with, it's so wrong on so many levels. So I just want to acknowledge that it was not okay. What happened to you was not okay from the start. The fact that your doula did not do the bare minimum, which is be you on your side, was not okay. A doula's job is to protect her client. She is not a medical provider. She cannot be the one putting in the epidural and seeing, maybe they're putting in a little bit too high of a dose or things like that. But she should be that voice speaking up for you, and be able to read the room and see when she's needed and when she's not. And you didn't get that, and for that, I'm also so sorry. I just want to reflect back to you for a moment, going back to everything that happened. If you can go back in time and tell yourself something in the moment, what would that be?
In regards to advocating more for myself, as my doctor said, you should have made more noise. I think it would have been really important for me to know to not be nice to anyone else. No one else should have mattered right then. I understand in my mind, I was like, well, the nurses are doing their best and the doctors are doing their best and everyone's doing their best. Typically, a doula will advocate for you, but in case your doula doesn't, don't be nice to people. Don't be nice to the nurse who's not listening to you. Don't be nice to the doctors who are being rude, walking in and out. Stop them and don't let them do that. You protest as much as you need to until you're heard. Because if no one else is doing it for you, you got to do that job. It's super important when you are in a vulnerable state like giving birth that you are heard.
Yes. And ideally, we wouldn't want the birthing mother to have to speak up, right? She should be focusing on giving birth. But your doula did not step up to that role. And, when you are the mom walking in and the dad walking in, all you want is a healthy baby. And we just, it's an unfamiliar territory, right? It's not like you work in the hospital every day. You don't really know like what the process is like. And I also want you to give yourself a lot of grace, because most people don't know how to do that when they have to navigate this unfamiliar territory. It's not something that you do every day, of advocating and speaking up and knowing the little details on the epidural or the vaginal checks or things like that. It was the first time you encountered that. You did everything that you could have done, and you spoke up. It seemed like you did speak up, and you were very adamant. I also want to say how strong you were. Like the fact that you were on Pitocin for 4 hours without adequate epidural coverage and not being able to move around. It just shows how much strength you have as a woman and as a mother. Like, it's incredible to me. And, most of the time when people have Pitocin, either they have an epidural, or they have a really hands-on doula, or they're able to move around and they're getting lots of counter pressure and things like that. And you didn't have any of that. So that just shows what a strong person you are. Like, there are so many pieces to the puzzle, and I'm sure you're still putting them back together, but a lot of things that stand out. The fact that, your baby wasn't in the right position, right? Everything, there's a journey for you were meant to walk on this journey. Your baby was meant to go on this journey for whatever reason. But going back to, maybe if you would have been able to move around and your baby would have been able to move around, and things might have taken a different, it might have looked a little different. Of course, we can't know that 100%, right? The bottom line is that what you went through is not okay, and it should not be okay. And women should know that if this happens to them, then they have to speak up, or if someone there needs to speak up. And you deserve better. So your baby's in the NICU and you're hoping to see your baby. And what's that journey like for you, if you feel comfortable sharing?
It was hard. The first day, they were giving me the plasma super slow, so we had to really advocate for it. They wheeled me down, they let me hold my baby, and then they wheeled me back to my room. A really cool thing that my hospital had is basically like baby monitors in the NICU. So I can log in on an iPad and I can see my baby, check in on him. I found that was really sweet that I got to at least see him. The next day, so the day after I gave birth, they did something that I don't even understand. The next day, they decided I needed 8 more bags of blood in order to take the epidural out. This is Wednesday. I got that epidural on Monday. So it's been on my back for a little while. They gave me 8 bags of blood. And then the lab still didn't come back normal. I was like, I don't care. Take that epidural out of my back and let me go see my baby. So they took it out with just 8 bags of blood. In total, I had 18 bags, which my anesthesiologist said was a record for her.
Oh my God.
So Wednesday, after they finished giving me all the blood, I was finally allowed to go between my room and the NICU, see my baby freely. He had a bunch of monitors and machines attached to him because they discovered that he was having seizures. They gave him like 3 different seizure medications at once. So it completely stopped all the seizures, but that made him super sleepy, which made it hard for him to breathe. So he had help breathing. He had monitors on his head to check for any seizure activity, to make sure the medications are working. Couldn't really be held because of it. He couldn't be nursed because of it. They completely stopped giving him feeds. They started giving him through an IV line. It was pretty rough. He ended up being in the NICU for 15 days. We ended up leaving him behind. We went home Friday afternoon and he stayed a while longer. Leaving a baby behind is something I wish no one ever has to experience. It is beyond hard. I kept joking, but it is serious. When your baby's in the NICU, it's like you gave birth, but the hospital got a baby. It's really not your baby. You get told what your baby did, and they're so excited to tell you how cute your baby is, but you don't want any of these people in your lives. You just want your baby home with you. I remember one night I was with my baby and we were leaving for the night, and the nurse was so excited to tell us that tonight they're going to be giving him a bath and he's going to be having a bath later. And I knew that he was in the NICU for a long time and going through a lot of things, and you cannot delay your baby's bath for that long while he's in the NICU. You can't just wait for him to come home for that magical moment you've been dreaming of your entire pregnancy, for that adorable delayed bath with your baby. Um, I knew it just has to happen, but I remember crying on the way out and the security in the lobby just being so concerned. But there's a lot of moments you lose that you dream up in your pregnancy. You lose that when your baby's in the NICU, when your baby is not with you anymore. It's really hard. So any mom who's listening with a baby in the NICU, my heart goes out to you. It's
Wow.
tough.
I'm tearing up just like hearing you speak, and I can't imagine having to go through that. And I'm sure your baby felt your love, because I feel your love, so strongly through the screen for your child. And even though you weren't right there next to him, and even though he wasn't the best, everyone's like, he's in good hands, like he's where he needs to be, but still it sucks. You just want your baby with you. You just want your baby at home. You did the right thing as a mother. You sacrificed those moments for the long-term good for your child, but it still doesn't bring back that first bath and holding your baby for the first time right after birth. And that's, I want to acknowledge that really that sucks. And Mirza Hashem, you're gonna have a lifetime to be with your baby and give him all the love and hold him. And babies, until they're 12 weeks old, they still think they're in the womb, and you still need to treat them like newborns. Like, even though baby's already like 6 weeks old, 8, baby's still a newborn. You still have that like early newborn stage where you get to do the skin to skin and baby wear and feed your baby, whatever that looks like, and be with your baby. Because really, as much as your baby was cared for by all of these people, you're the only person that your baby needs. And right now, he has that. He has you there. So he's a lucky little boy. So your baby got home, and how was that once he got discharged?
Oh, if I can for a second before that, I do want to say about having a baby in a NICU, because I
Sure.
don't think it's part of anyone's birth plan. Um, you do teach in your class that having a blanket that you sleep with beforehand for your baby to have. We actually did that. It was in my hospital bag because, again, we had plan A through Z. So I remember waking up from my C-section and my husband telling me my baby's so cute. And I was like, wait, but take that blanket that smells like us for him to have. That was really great. Another thing I want to put out there for anyone who might have a baby that cannot orally feed, but does have, pacifiers that they could take. There's a pacifier called the Nini, and it helps with oral development. And I was super into advocating for my baby to have that pacifier. That typical green pacifier that I have in the NICU, I kept hiding them so the nurses wouldn't use them. Because my baby didn't orally feed for about 10 days, but he was able to breastfeed right after that. He had no issue. And I
Wow.
think a big help was that we were using pacifiers to help his oral development. So there are things you could do and care for your baby when they're in the NICU, which will help them long term. So the blanket with them, and he was there for a long time. So we started sleeping with other blankets, interchanging them, having lots of extra blankets. So if the nurse felt like it got dirty, she needs to change it out. There was always another one there. And, having the pacifier that he needed. I remember one of the nurses was telling me that she can't use the pacifier because it has a big rim and he has something in his nose and it gets in the way. So I said, cut the pacifier. They were cutting the hospital's pacifier to the top part of it. And they were like, well, we can use ours because we cut it. And I said, the pacifier is to benefit the baby. If
Yeah.
you need to cut it so he can benefit from it, cut the pacifier. And we did that. Another great thing that I think people should understand, a lot of parents who have babies in the NICU do not get any gifts in the beginning, which makes it a little more sad and makes it feel like the whole occasion of getting gifts super exciting.
Yeah.
But NICU parents don't necessarily get it. So a great thing you can get NICU moms is two things. One is self-care things. I know quite a few friends and family members got me like slippers and stuff like that. And that meant so much to me because he wasn't wearing any clothes or anything. And another great thing you could get is hats. So a lot of these babies can start wearing hats. That's the first thing they're allowed to wear. And that's just something super thoughtful so people feel excited. And it brings back a little bit of that magical feeling to having a baby, even though they're going through a rough time.
I love to hear that. And I think that we can all learn from it, that in spite of everything, there are still things that we can hold on to and make this experience our own and have these special moments. And also, I think it's important. And, for myself, I never thought of it of, hey, a mom that just gave birth and her baby's in the NICU and you're not having the celebrations until in a couple weeks. So you're waiting to give the gift when you can drop it off. But, maybe there's something else I can give for the mom. I think that's really, that's eye-opening. And I think a lot of people can learn from that. So thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else that, looking back, in spite of everything and through that dark time, you were able to hold on to like some moments that brought you comfort or joy?
Yeah, when we went home on a Friday. I had so many pictures of my baby on my phone already. And he did not look like all the cute little typical babies. He was cute. He's adorable, but he had machines all over him. We still thought he was precious. I think a great thing that parents who are leaving their baby, Walgreens prints pictures same day. So before I even left the hospital, I printed my pictures and I had my mother pick them up for me that day. And I just stuck them all over my bedroom wall. So
Wow.
I have my baby with me at all times. I think a lot of NICU pictures don't end up getting printed because they're not as cute as the other ones. But I think it helps you keep your baby close at heart when you
Yeah,
can just look up and see them all the time. They're right there with you.
I love it. That's so special. Wow. Sorry, I have no words, honestly. You shared so much and you were so vulnerable and open, and I learned so much more than I even thought I will. And I'm sure that so many other mothers were touched by your story, and you're so well spoken. I have to give you that. What would you tell a mother that was in your situation? Maybe she's pregnant right now and she knows that she has some type of condition that puts her at a higher risk, or maybe she had an emergency C-section, or maybe her baby's in the NICU, what's something that just comes up that you want her to know?
I think something that's super important for everyone to know in any situation they are in, any point of life, is we all do the best we can with what we can in the moment. We can all look back at last week and say, I wish I would have done that way. And we can all think in the future, I'm going to do this specific way. When the moment comes, you are a good person at heart. You are going to make the best decision you can with the information you have, with the tools you have. Be kind to yourself for the decisions you made. I think a lot of people beat themselves up a bit. And I know that this isn't magically going to change it for people. And people are still going to wish they could do more and change more. I remember right after my C-section, I literally messaged you about how I can get back in shape. And I was still swollen in every place and bleeding and everything. The last thing I should have been doing is getting back in shape. I just had such a need for doing and changing and being in control of things. I think even if you have that need and even if you feel regret about what you did, it's always important to take a second, remind yourself, we do the best we can in the moment with what we have. Just really be kind to yourself with that.
I love it. You couldn't have said it any better. I think that hindsight is always 20/20, right? Like you look back, you're like, I should have done this and I should have done that. I even do something sometimes when I have a conversation with someone and then I leave and I'm like, I should have said that to that person. I go into my room and I literally look in the mirror and I say it like as if I take back that control, like I got to say it. But in the moment, when you go through something, you have the environment, you have the people around you, everything is influencing how you're feeling, and you just do the best you can. And from your story, I'm hearing so much strength. I'm hearing so much love. I'm seeing a mama bear like just roaring once her baby is born and sticking up for her child. And you really did so much. And I hope you're so proud of yourself. 'Cause I'm proud of you. And how's baby now, if I may ask?
Oh my gosh, it's the cutest thing ever. Because of his stroke, there is, a bunch of doctor follow-ups. My life is not going to get boring anytime soon. But he's been doing great developmentally. People who wouldn't know he had a stroke can't really tell anything. Physically, he is exceeding normal baby stuff. He's super strong and he's feeding really well, which is incredible for a baby who couldn't feed for 10 days.
That's amazing.
He actually loves cuddling, which a lot of babies in the NICU don't get enough sensory input. Therefore, they don't really like being touched. And it's really cool that he loves cuddles as much as any other baby.
Oh,
He's awesome. And I feel so grateful to have him.
and he's lucky to have you.
Thank you.
It really is. Wow. Chaya Sury, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm sure that there's so much more. But whatever you shared, and you shared so much, like inspired me. I'm sure it's going to inspire so many other women. And I'm really grateful that you came on and you agreed to do this. So thank you.
My pleasure. And I hope people can find help in what I said and not lean into any of the fear, because again, this does not happen to people. This story is so unique and so rare. The way I know that babies having a stroke is rare is when you learn first aid, you learn about the signs of a stroke, and it's about this crooked smile and slurred speech and a hands being uneven. You don't learn about signs for a baby because it doesn't happen. So hopefully this doesn't happen to any baby anymore. And whatever happens, I'm sure every woman listening to this will do the absolute best they can with what they have in the moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Chaya Sury. I really appreciate it. And those were some wise words. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you're looking for more support on your journey, I'd love to invite you to check out my Brain Body Birth course at gentlebeginnings.life/BBB. That's gentlebeginnings.life/BBB. I created this course because I saw so many women walking into birth feeling overwhelmed, anxious, and unsure of what to expect. Brain Body Birth is designed to change that. Inside, I guide you through the mindset tools, evidence-based education, practical birth preparation, advocacy skills, and postpartum planning that can help you feel calm, confident, and ready for whatever path your birth takes. My goal isn't to help you have one specific type of birth. It's to help you understand your options, trust yourself, and walk into birth feeling informed, empowered, and supported. It's the course I wish every mom had before welcoming her baby. And if you found this episode helpful, I'd be so grateful if you shared with a friend, sister, or a fellow mom who could use a little extra support. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and comment if your platform allows it. Those simple actions make a huge difference and help me reach more women with this information. Until next time, take a deep breath, trust yourself, and remember, you are capable. Your body is wise, and you deserve to feel supported every step of the way. And just a quick reminder that the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider regarding your specific situation and medical care. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.